Well, hello everybody, my name is Owen. I'm a physiotherapist of some 39 years and I'm also involved in inclusive community contemporary dance theatre training. Now today I'm just going to go through my own training processes as an older man, as a man not without having had some injuries and other circumstances over life that have created some physical issues. And I want to do this just to lead you into some of the concepts of guiding your own body when you're a bit older, or maybe when you've got some things happening with your body that aren't maybe as good as they used to be. So I'm just going to go along with this nice and steadily and follow along. And as time goes by, I'll add to this as a series so you can see the different forms of movement training that I introduce to my body as I'm doing some training consistently over time. So right now I've had a couple of weeks where I wasn't doing much training and doing a lot of driving over long distances, and over the past week I've got back to some of my movement training, so I'm not quite as stiff as I was a week ago, but nonetheless you'll see how I'm dealing with what resistances there are in my body, what weaknesses, what incapacities, and we'll see over time how those can change even with a somewhat older person. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to start on the floor, and I think unless you can't get down on the floor, this is a great place to start. If you can't get down on the floor, then there are some ways which you will see that you might be able to translate some of the work into sitting in a chair, which might be your best shot. And I'd like to hear from you if sitting in the chair is really all you've got, and we can introduce some lessons that specifically deal with that. And who knows, you might find over time that sitting in the chair is not all you've got. Okay, let's go. So the first thing to do is to just check in where you are on the floor and how your body is. And there are some areas that might be uncomfortable. So use a small cushion if you need to, a roll of towel. But start off getting yourself comfortable. If you need something under the back of your knees, for example, just start off that way. There's no place that you can't start from except an uncomfortable place. So I would suggest, unless it seems to be absolutely impossible to get into comfort in any situation that you try to design, then make yourself comfortable. Bring whatever you need to make yourself comfortable. If it seems that you've tried so many things to even get a comfortable position and you're not able to do this, you can send me a message. Maybe we can set up some one-to-one problem-solving scenario. As you're checking in, you might like to wriggle around a bit. I sometimes find that things automatically, as I'm settling down, feel a bit asymmetrical. So a little bit of wriggling around comfortably can just take some immediate tensions that might be sitting in the muscular system and making us feel asymmetrical. I like to start with the simple exercise of rotating the lumbar spine with the knees bent. Now for myself, I do this particularly because I have a long-standing left lumbar spine injury that gives me quite a routine niggle and can get stiff quite quickly when I'm not exercising. We just take the knees to one side as slowly and smoothly as I can, and if I start to feel some resistance or a little bit of pain, Even the mildest bit of discomfort, I stop and I return and then go the other way. A week ago, this was beginning to be quite difficult, and I was probably only going 50% of the way when I started. Before I got some pain, maybe like 4 or 5 out of 10 pain, even if I pushed on that, and certainly quite a bit of resistance within that. This week, it's more like perhaps 80 to 90% of the movement is okay, and then a little bit of discomfort or resistance. And when I say resistance, I mean that there is something in the body coming to some tension. It'll often be the side of the body you're moving away from if it's just a bit of tension in the muscular system or the soft tissue system. And I'll probably do this, say, 20 times today, not pushing anything, just going to the resistance and coming back. And as it gets further and further into those 20, I can bring my awareness to a lot more of the movement along my spine that's occurring. And once you can be reassured that you're not going to hurt yourself, not going to create pain, because you're under control of the movement and you're not pushing into anything that might cause you pain, then you can do much more smooth movements, and you can become aware of much more movement throughout your body, your spine, even right up to your neck and head, the backs of your shoulders. You will sense that something moves there, something might change in terms of the pressures against the floor. Become aware of all these things. Movement retraining and the influence it can have on painful movement has got a lot to do with training and being aware of the movement throughout the whole body. And that's going to occur regardless of a specific part of the body that you're attending to. So become aware of how any movement in any part of the body influences the position or some movement in the furthest part of the body from that. And it's going to be there. I'm happy to do up to 50 of these movements when I'm particularly stiff and sore. And the movements have a number of physiological effects. One of the primary being that we're a viscous organism, and how viscous our systems are is how well the movement of different tissues around each other or against each other is going to be. There is a tendency as we're working to have a more viscous system. In other words, our extracellular fluids, our lymph fluids, are a little heavier. And this might become more so over life. On top of that, we might have areas of inflammation. They can can be in muscles, they can be in ligamentous structures, joint structures. Most common are associated with degenerative joint disease, the wearing of cartilage, the damage to cartilage within any sort of joints due to injuries or simply just the years of use. And not all wear and tear creates inflammation, and there might be a whole number of factors that go towards why a particular joint might become more inflamed than any others. My experience is in the average person, this has to do with that the wear and tear of a joint can be due to a little bit more pressure, compression, shear forces going through that joint compared to its partner joint on the other side of the body. And that's caused by a certain asymmetry of weight bearing through the body. And if that's happening on a daily basis, then the whole bony system is responding by thickening up, and that's a very active, somewhat inflammatory process. And if you're going through a process like that with a more superficial joint, like a knee joint, you will actually find that the superficial bone is tender. It's more difficult with our spinal joints because they're cosseted under great layers of muscle. Now I've lost count rather, but that's more than enough for those, and I was feeling quite comfortable towards the end, moving those knees right over. I can just have a bit of a stretch out and a feel of the body on the floor. Often you'll find after doing a little bit of work like this that, there's an immediate relaxation and comfort through the body, if not the whole body, at least some part of the body. For me now it's through the legs and the low back and the hips, the pelvis. Take a moment to just enjoy that, to just go, there's a distinction there. We want the brain to be attuned to those distinctions. What is it for a body to feel really comfortable? Now I'm going to do some pelvic bridges, just lifting my hips off the floor. I'm going to take this quite steadily. So I'm going to feel to see if there's any, again, restrictions or anything that might cause pain, even from the very taking of the weight part of this movement. So I'm going to just slowly gather the muscles around the hips and lift. And there's a little twinge there, actually, interestingly, in the left upper part of the lumbar spine. And it's not much. I'd call it a 1 or 2 out of 10. But I'm just going to go to that spot because I want to see if I can pick up something about it. There's certainly something like a little catch, something like a little bit of resistance there at that point. So I'm not going to go any higher than that, although it would be quite easy to do so. I'm going to do 10 of those. And Just be aware of it. And it's changing already. That particular point is no longer creating a catch, but there is something more vague, a little bit deeper in the body. It feels a little bit lower down. It's still on the left side. We go a bit higher with more ease. And so you only need to pay attention to it. You don't need to try to do anything about it. If you're noticing to the brain, oh, there's a bit of resistance, there's a bit of pain, and we're not going to do any pushing on that pain. Everything's going to be quite safe. There's going to be no threatening of the body here. When our defense mechanisms are released at the brain level, our brain can sort of sort out other options. It allows the motor system itself to notice that, oh, maybe something can be activated in this muscle and something can be released in that muscle. I don't have an ability to be consciously and cognitively in control of all these muscles. That would be kind of a ludicrous proposition, actually. Our bodies will move according to their training, but also our brain, in all sorts of ways, but certainly in movement, have a way of creating a solution to a problem, providing there is a solution of any kind. It's not going to have us take off and fly around the room anytime soon. It'll create a solution in the potentials that are there. Because everything is wired and networked, every muscle, individually and in group settings. And when we do this slow movement training, we can provide the brain an opportunity to isolate individual muscular activity from its more natural, we might say, group settings. Many muscles are wired together in activity. That's why it's so natural for us to learn to walk. However, if we overlay that with extra muscle activities over time through the sheer habit of that, those muscles also become wired to fire off when we are, for example, walking or sitting or bending or climbing. And just going to check in overall.